recording, please.
Okay, will do.
Great. Thank you all for joining us for this webinar today. I'm Mary Abazia with Impact Planning Group, and with us is Tom Spitali, also part of Impact Planning Group, and Carolyn Walker from Response Marketing. We actually have John Taberzi, our tech person, as well. If you have any questions, you can send him a quick note. So we respect your time, and so we've made this as short as we can, 20 minutes. And what we'll do is we'll try to answer your questions along the way. You can send us a chat, or at the end, if we have time, we'll certainly answer your questions. And you can always email us after. We are recording this so that we will send you the link to this. You can see it again, and you're welcome to share it with any of your associates. What we're doing here today is answering three big questions about brand portfolio optimization, what it is and why it's important, and then who's doing it well and what are they getting right. And then bringing it back to you, what are some keys to success that you may want to think about in some way? What we find is often branding is thought of as a consumer type thing. And the work that we've been doing with more of the B2B, business-to-business type companies, industrial, healthcare, what we find is that they are finding significant opportunities when they go and they start to focus. Instead of having a house of too many brands, they start to focus, and frankly, they just make it easier for their customers to do business with them. So as we go through this, Carolyn Walker is now going to take us through the first two questions, and then Tom Spitali will take us through the third question. Carolyn?
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Mary. So in both B2C and B2B environments, brand portfolios often bloat, and this can be due to mergers, acquisitions, new brand introductions, etc. And this can fragment marketing resources and destroy economies of scale. In addition, management time is frequently eaten up with refereeing brand usage, and brands sometimes get lost in large portfolios, sometimes quite literally, as P&G discovered when it lost the rights to White Cloud trademark after the company retired the brand and left it unprotected. Moreover, as Mary mentioned, cluttered portfolios can create marketplace confusion. The challenge is that the process for managing brand portfolios has not grown at the same pace as the enthusiasm for creating and expanding those portfolios. The techniques that are essentially the same as those that were in place when the typical portfolio was really a fraction of the size that it is today. And we understand that few companies, especially B2Bs, have no formal methodology that enables them to have a clear way to clear away the debris from prior efforts. And as a result, what's needed is a structured, straightforward approach for streamlining the brands into a more powerful and effective portfolio. And that's what we're presenting to you here today. It's the concept of brand portfolio optimization. And it really is the act of applying strategy in terms of objectives, organization, scope, roles, structure, interrelationships, and even graphics to the management of your portfolio of brands to maximize the support of and impact on your business goals. And by the way, it is not a one-and-done practice. BPO is an ongoing periodic event that allows managers to kind of step back from the daily crush of their problems and evaluate portfolio performance and chart the course ahead. David Acker, who I'm sure most of you are familiar with, is a world-renowned brand strategist and author, and he says, have the fewest relevant brands needed to meet the business goals. And we strongly encourage you, as you go through the BPO process, that you don't lose focus on fewer, stronger brands. The importance of BPO is really best understood when you take a look at the potential outcomes of it doing well by focusing on fewer, stronger brands. And those outcomes are things like bringing brand clarity to your brands both internally and, more importantly, externally to your customers or potential customers, with each brand in your portfolio owning a distinct position in your customer's mind without overlap and without confusion. It also provides a path to stronger, more focused brand investment management, spending money on the brands that have the most potential. And ultimately, this clarity and focused investment, amongst other things, really drives brand equity and organic growth in your business. Honeywell. So Honeywell is a prime example of a company that's practicing and employing BPO really well. As you know, Honeywell is a huge conglomerate, primarily in the B2B space, but they clearly have a presence in B2C as well. And their case study is fascinating to us, as they've done a great job in marrying their business growth strategy, which is about great positions in good markets, with their brand portfolio management strategy, which is really all about building equity in the Honeywell brand. And over the past 15 years, they've acquired more than 85 brands, many of which migrated from the acquired brand all the way over to Honeywell. The architecture that Honeywell employs is very much a branded house. And so they're focused on building as much brand equity, as I said, in the Honeywell brand as possible. So on a corporate level, a business unit level, on a product level, they lead with Honeywell. However, they do make exceptions with strategic precision based on where the equity lies, if there are any channel conflicts, or if there's a purpose for a standalone brand, like in the case of ADI. ADI is a distributor that not only carries and sells Honeywell product, but competitive product as well. Many companies we work with have anxiety about brand pruning and rationalization. And what quells the fears is having a clear path forward with a migration plan. And Honeywell has done this really well. They have a focused 18 to 36-month migration plan process that systematically transfers equity from the acquired brand all the way to Honeywell. And the results are really super impressive. Honeywell's brand value ranking, which is the difference between their book value and market value with their brand value, has climbed by over 33 points in 6 years. Their sales have increased by 73% in 13 years, and most impressively, their stock price has increased by 435% in that same time. So you're probably curious now about what the keys to success are and what you can do in your own company. So I'm going to turn it over to Tom Spitality from Impact Planning to share some of those thoughts with you.
Thanks, Carolyn. Not all B2Bs, most B2Bs don't manage their brands as well as Honeywell. So as Carolyn said, what I want to give you is a couple keys to success, strategies, tools, and frameworks that we use with our B2B clients who are trying to optimize their brand portfolio. And most of them come to us with like this overgrown garden of brands for the reasons that Carolyn mentioned earlier, right? They've acquired a lot of companies, they've extended brands, they've introduced new brands, and they really have no idea which of the brands have equity, which are strong, which are weak. Most of their feelings in this area are not based on objective analysis, but on emotional decisions about which brands have been in the portfolio longest or how many people work in that brand area. So a power brand analysis is one of our first steps to take an objective look at which brands in a portfolio truly are strong and truly are weak. Now, the definition of a power brand is a brand that has two characteristics. One, it has very high awareness in its markets amongst customers and prospects. And number two, it has what we call high conversion, which means that high awareness turns into consideration, purchase, usage, and repeat purchase. So a brand that has both high awareness and high conversion gets a green dot in our power brand analysis. It is a true power brand. A brand that has high conversion but low awareness gets a yellow dot. That's a potential power brand. The saying around these brands is to know these brands is to love these brands, but many in the marketplace are not aware of those brands. So if you could just add some more awareness to these high converting brands, they could become power brands. They're really interesting. They're represented, like I said, by these yellow dots. And then, of course, the red dots are brands that have low conversion, low awareness. These are the weak brands. What we do is we leverage any client past brand research that they have and supplement it as needed and as budget allows with qualitative and quantitative research so that we can measure their brands in each market, region, customer segment by need so that they can truly get an objective view of the equity that lies in their brands across the globe. Now, sometimes, not often, our clients are surprised by which of their brands are power brands. Usually they know, but sometimes there's more equity in a brand than they thought. And as I said, the yellow potential power brands are interesting. We'll talk more about them in a minute. But what most of our clients are really aghast about is how many red dots, how many weak brands that they have that they're investing in, that they're supporting, that have no chance for being a power brand. And so we take the result of this power brand analysis and we utilize it in the next step, which is we utilize it in helping them optimize their brand architecture. Carolyn showed you earlier Honeywell's brand architecture, so you get an idea that it's really the way the brands are, kind of hierarchically constructed, what brands are invested in. And you can see on this chart there's a wide range of ways, acceptable ways, to architect your brands. From a branded house like GE, where the equity really lies in the corporate brand, so they try to use that GE logo and name throughout all of their portfolio, all the way to the right-hand side, where you have a situation of a house of brands like Textron, where the corporate entity is not that powerful. The equity lies in the individual brands, so they support the individual brands. And then in the middle, you've got Honeywell and Emerson. Honeywell largely a branded house, but as Carolyn said, there's room for a standalone brand or two or an endorsed brand in there, as well as with Emerson. Here's the point. The point is not that there's one answer whether you should be a branded house or a house of brands. We've seen everything along this continuum work. The point is that if you don't weed out the weak brands in your brand architecture, in other words, if your brand architecture includes an amalgamation of powerful, potentially powerful and weak brands, you're missing a huge opportunity in brand architecture. If we go to the next slide, what the point is B2B brands really need to focus around a few strong brands. As Carolyn said, fewer, stronger brands is the mantra. And there's a real practical reason to organize around these few master brands and really organize everything else like underneath these powerful master brands or standalone brands. And here's that practical reason. Business-to-business organizations historically don't have a big budget for brand building or creating brand awareness. It typically is not there. So the brand building and brand awareness activities for a B2B organization are typically in the sales conversations that they're having across the globe about their brands, at trade shows, the discussions that they're having, and their marketing communications. When that type of communication, sales conversations, and whatnot are spread across too many brands, it dilutes the message, it dilutes the brand. And your potential power brands never have a chance to become power brands, and your power brands are weaker than they would be. If you weed the weaker brands out of your portfolio, what happens is that discussion, all of those conversations and communications are concentrated on these fewer, stronger brands. And what happens is that your power brands, your current power brands become more powerful, and your potential power brands turn into power brands. And this has a lot of financial benefits that Carolyn's already alluded to. We'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. But there's a third thing. Okay, so first we talk about analyzing objectively your power brand analysis, and secondly, using those brands, power brands, and weeding out the weaker brands to optimize your architecture. The third part that we've got to consider is brand portfolio organization. This is the concept that your brands must stand for something unique in the mind of your customers. And there's a whole host of ways that companies associate their brands in a brand portfolio strategy. Most commonly, they use the right-hand side of this diagram using firmographics. They say, well, a particular brand is a direct brand, or this is our wholesale or our distribution brand, or a residential brand, or a commercial brand, or an industrial brand. The problem with the right side of this, these firmographics as a way to define your portfolio, is that they're too broad and too general. Companies that use these kind of approaches to organize their portfolio can put more than one brand, sometimes many brands, into these boxes, into these designations. And it's left to your customers to try to figure out what each individual brand stands for. And in an age of overwhelmed customers, that is not a good thing. It doesn't lead to good results. If you move towards the left, towards customer segments and needs, and define your brands and associate your brands uniquely with customer needs and customer segments, that makes a heck of a lot more sense to customers, and it's specific enough that you can associate an individual brand with each box in your portfolio matrix, if you will, which makes it easy for customers to get you and what your brand stands for. Let's look at a couple of examples of this. The next slide is the Marriott Corporation. This is sort of a B2B, B2C example, business to business, and the aspect that it caters to business travelers, business to consumers, to personal travel. Nonetheless, Marriott does a great job of organizing their portfolio down the left-hand side by price point, but across the top by customer segment. And what you'll see is the variety of segments, and then you'll see an individual property associated with that price point and with that segment. And no more than one property or one brand is in each of the boxes on here. That's easy for customers to understand and figure out how to choose a brand that is just right for them, and it works very well for the Marriott Corporation. If you go to the next slide, we'll see a pure B2B example with FedEx. It's more of a branded house type of B2B example. But again, down the left-hand side, you've got the price points and price tiers, but across the top, you have different kind of customer shipping needs. And you can see that there's no more than one FedEx brand that goes into each box. And they're even content to not have any brands in some of these boxes and not play in some of these areas, to have fewer, stronger brands. And even more, if you look at that speed column, you see FedEx Express can actually be elastic and spread across that those price categories because it's such a strong brand and stands so much for speed. So the last slide that I want to present shows another payoff. Like I said earlier, Carolyn showed Honeywell's payoff, right? The payoff for getting all three of these things right. Objectively looking at your power brands, architecting your brands according to the stronger and potentially strong power brands, and organize your portfolio in a way that makes sense to customers. Unilever did this. And from 1999 to 2015, they shed 1,200 weak brands. And the financial results were pretty astounding. At a 225% increase in the number of brands that had sales in excess of $1 billion, and a whole host of other benefits in sales and profits, and a 43% bump in stock price, all in that time period. This is indicative of the kind of results that you can get if you do and execute these strategies. They're not easy to do, but they're very powerful. We see time and again stellar results. Brand portfolio optimization is one of the few things in business that can gain you more by doing less. In other words, by managing fewer brands, you can gain more profits and more top and bottom line benefits. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Mary to finish out the workshop.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tom. So Carolyn took us through the definition and some great examples, and then Tom helped us see how do you actually make this come alive in an organization. The question we get asked often is, what is the process for this? And you can see here that we have three basic steps to it, and it's that discovery and planning is where that power brand analysis that Tom took us through exists. And then the phase 2 is making sure that we have the right people in the room. Anyone that could kill it later, you want to have part of that and make sure not only that they buy in, but they're really weighing in. And senior leadership is key, of course, because this has fundamental implications across the whole organization. And then the execution of is the third, where Carolyn had talked about the brand migration. And a lot of times companies, if they don't see that path, they're afraid to do any of this. So it's really important that that's a piece of it. So if you're going to do it, this is an approach that you might want to consider. If you need help, this is what we would do. And the question is, how long does it take to do this? And it can be anywhere from 4 months around to 8 or 9 months, depending on how fast the organization wants to move. So, but it is very doable. And the question is then, how do I know if I have an opportunity for my own brands? There is a simple assessment that we can walk you through so that you have not only a better look at what your situation is, but you may need some evidence to talk to other people in your organization about, what the situation, kind of calibrating what it looks like. And so through this whole webinar, we hope that you now see, some of the reasons and the way you might consistently manage your brand and how you can really treat this brand portfolio optimization as an asset or equity management. You saw with those examples how it can really hit the bottom line when you do this right. And as Tom said, fewer, stronger brands is really the key to all of this. So I think right now, John, do you have any big questions that you've seen come through?
Yeah, actually, Tyler Cunningham. Tyler, you're muted, but I see he had a question. He's from Gray Health Group. Tyler, you want to unmute yourself? And there you go.
We'll go ahead and turn off the recording, and we'll answer questions now.
Okay.
Great, thank you.